All right, guys, stay tuned for another episode of Brickmania TV. All right. All right, Dan, show us that book you got there.
So, yes, we're starting off Vietnam month. January 2017, we're revisiting Vietnam War theory themed kits, and thought I'd bring out some of the heavy artillery. This is the RP Honeycutt Sheridan book. This is amazing. If you can get your hands on one of these, it'll tell you everything about post-World War II light tank development.
Right on.
So, and speaking of post-World War II light tanks, we have the
Sheridan. Yeah, so you got two models here. Sure. One's going to be a kit, and the other one's just to kind of show off, right?
Exactly. So the M551 Sheridan, it's not even classified as a light tank. They, at the end of World War II, the United States changed the way it's structured, how we call things. Tanks, it was just a tank. So the M48 Patton was the standard tank, like around 1960s. And they didn't know, because there's no light tanks anymore, right. They had to call this something else. It was actually like an armed cavalry vehicle that they developed. It's basically a light tank.
Right.
So, two versions.
Super. What was it made of? Like aluminum?
Yeah. So at the end of World War II, they had the Chaffee. The Chaffee had the same gun as the Sherman. They wanted something better, so they developed the M41 Walker Bulldog.
Yep.
One problem with the Walker Bulldog. This is the Cold War, height of the Cold War, arms race with the Soviet Union going on. Soviet Union came out with a swimming light tank. I think it's the PT-76. So basically, like the same gun that was in the T-34,
yep.
Put into a very light, swimmable tank, really air mobile because they could fit this in the existing aircraft.
Cool.
So of course the Pentagon wants its own air mobile swimming light tank. Right. So they scrapped the perfectly good M41 Walker Bulldog, foisted it off on all of our so-called allies because we're so generous, and left our army with nothing to replace it. So they developed this M551 Sheridan sort of cavalry vehicle and reconnaissance vehicle. They lightened up the M41 because the M41 was too heavy to fit into aircraft. Right. Too heavy to be considered a light tank. So what they did is they made a brand new aluminum hull, kind of revolutionary aluminum armor. This is the same era that brought the M113, same aluminum hull concept. This thing actually swims.
Right.
So in the same way that the DD tanks swam at Normandy and a lot of them sank, they decided that would be a good idea and let's do it again and put it on another.
Yeah, I was looking at pictures of that. Like this whole side pops up.
Yeah, really around the edge.
Not on this model, but
yeah, we can't do that because cost restrictions. Yeah. Yes, the bean counters would pull our funding. So basically, there's a skirt that pops out of the hull of the tank. The swim vane, which we actually have on the tank here, the swim vane would flip open, and then there's a rubber membrane that comes around here. This thing goes in the water, and it looks kind of funny, like a little boat. They didn't actually do it in the field. It was kind of a complicated process. When you're driving along in the delta of South Vietnam, and you want to go in the water, you probably best just get a boat. Not stop and put your tank together.
Yeah.
And deal with all the consequences of stopping in the middle of some sort of armed reconnaissance or something. Anyway, so they do have this light tank. In Vietnam, the war was heating up. The U.S. forces were looking for some sort of fast vehicle. The M113 is what they were equipping the cavalry units, the armored cavalry. The Sheridan was pretty revolutionary. It had a whole totally new gun system. Yep. It was a 152 millimeter, I believe, a smoothbore gun. So it's a short, kind of stubby gun. It can fire conventional shells, although in order to save weight and space in the tank, they actually are caseless ammunition. It's basically a shell with a powder bag taped on the end or glued onto the back of it. Turned out to be kind of a fiasco in reality. So when this tank was developed, it was based around this 152 millimeter gun and the Shillelagh missile system that was basically an anti-tank, very advanced electronics system for giving the light tank the same sort of punch that can knock out any sort of main battle tank that would be sent against it. At the time, I guess the big fear was the T-55s, T-62s.
Was it used very much in Vietnam, or?
Well, so there wasn't much of an armored threat.
Sure.
The North Vietnamese army, they had tanks, but they didn't really risk them in sending them into South Vietnam.
Right.
There was not a whole lot of need for these anti-tank missiles, especially state-of-the-art. It's electronics. Remember, this is the age of they're still using tube. They're basically just starting to get into solid-state circuitry.
Sure.
So all the electronics on these things are really delicate. So they sent these to Vietnam. Originally, they didn't even have any shells for them yet. They were basically just gun platforms, machine gun platforms, mobile machine gun platforms. They finally got these shells to 152 millimeter shells to go with these tanks. They're kind of like, it's a double-edged sword. It was great because also they had this great firepower, but the caseless ammunition ended up being very volatile, making this tank very vulnerable to anti-tank fire. So imagine you have an artillery shell with a bag of propellant stuck to the end of it. You've got 20 of these things in the bottom of your tank. All it's going to take is one RPG, or
Just a spark and
yeah,
sets that all
a
off.
landmine, anything, and you basically have a big bag of, you have loose powder all over the inside of the tank. The thing's basically an inferno waiting to happen.
Right.
So usually you'll see the pictures of these things. The guys are
Yeah, they're on the
top.
outside of it.
Yeah, because that's the safest place to be. You're sitting on a huge target. They didn't want to give these things up because that gun, that 152 millimeter gun, was a huge firepower advantage in combat. But yeah, if they got ambushed, they were in trouble. So,
Yeah.
You see lots of stories about how this was like a kind of a useless tank, but then you also see the people who used it were like, oh, this thing was the best thing ever because we had nothing similar
Right.
to
There's
it.
nothing else.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
on the kit itself, why don't you go through some features on it?
sure, this is the kit version. The kit version, this is basically the factory fresh M551 that you would have seen in Vietnam. They got them into the field. They did all kinds of modifications depending on what they were using and who was using them. This kit is basically it's kind of decorated with the armored cavalry insignia. So this is the pennant. This is not a flag of a nation. These are actually cavalry pennants, and you'll see those throughout history. It goes back to the cavalry days. So this is copied from an actual tank that was in the field, but you're looking at stock. This is the stock tank. The gun does elevate, traverse, does everything the tank should do.
And that beside that is a light, I believe.
Yeah, there's a spotlight. They had they basically, you're talking about, this is the dawn of like night vision and all this stuff. So you have these big heavy spotlights on them. I believe they have an IR.
Yeah, was it an infrared spotlight? Or
I believe they have, it can do either.
Oh, cool.
It's a pretty advanced. Somebody can correct me. I'm sure there's somebody happy to correct me. But in spite of this, having this huge tome of information, I have not absorbed it all yet.
Not yet.
So, yeah. Opening hatches for the tank commander.
Right.
And there's actually an opening loader's hatch here on the side too. So you can have your second figure, like,
That's cool.
put your guy in there. So on this other version here, let's drop it up. Just for showing you some of the stuff that was done in Vietnam, this is more of a field modified version. I added an armored kit for the tank commander, second machine gun for the loader, M2HB. This is all something that you can do at home with yours once you get this. I just wanted to show it for give you ideas.
Right.
This is all stuff that was actually done in the field. So this, what you see here, is pretty common. You'll see a lot of units, pictures from Vietnam, with they're all outfitted.
With the dual M2HBs up there.
Well, I think that may not be as common, but definitely the extra armor for the commander.
Oh, for sure.
The tank commander, and then extra stowage, because they draw. These are small vehicles, and it'd be all packed full of ammunition.
Right.
And they would be there'd be no place to put your like your backpack, your food, your rations, all that stuff. So you're out in the field for a couple days at a time. You need extra stowage space. So they bolted,
sense.
strapped on anything they could do to put all their possessions in it. Otherwise, when you're out in the field, you've got no. This is your storeroom. This is your home. Everything. So you heard the expression, "Don't get off the tank."
Don't get off the tank.
You're bringing your home with you, basically.
Awesome. Well, you've been working on this for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, this is the first of the Vietnam releases. We're starting out with basically this is the simplest vehicle that we're going to have. So if you're expecting some small Jeeps or something, no, this is where we're starting. We're starting with the Sheridan, and we're moving on into bigger and better and more complex kits. So this is your entry level. It's just going to get bigger and better from this point on.
Right on. Cool. I guess stay tuned for future releases. I don't know. I'm excited for this kit. Are you excited for this kit, Dan?
I am excited. I made the instructions for this yesterday. We're all ready to go. The kits are pulled. We're getting boxed up. I don't think we've actually been this ready for a new release in a while.
Yeah. Be sure to like, subscribe, and other things on Facebook.
Hashtag share us with the hashtag.
Share us with
hashtag LegoNam.
hashtag LegoNam.
LegoNam. It's LegoNam. Yeah.
positive about that?
Yeah, Bricks of Bastogne, that was sold last month.
All right. Dan, I think it's time to get back to work.
Do we work?